Welcome to another episode of the Dynamic Thriving Podcast. I am your host, Marianne Pack, spiritual medium, author, publisher, and joyologist, guiding you into all things life transformational. And on this series, this is the Keys to Joyful Living podcast and book anthology. This is our project for 2024, and we're so looking forward to having our authors share from their heart and what they have developed over the years that have become their keys. I call it the keys to joyful living because it is the tools, the tricks, the methodologies, the processes that have been important in their lives, and now they are serving their clients with these. And I'm so excited to have Melissa Lombardo as my guest today. Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Hi, Marianne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm also equally as excited and energetic today. Feeling good.
Yes. And this particular podcast is about why these authors said yes to working with keys, because it's important for us to understand what was tugging at their hearts, what called through them, what was being called for them to serve in this way and to bring forth these into the world. So I'm going to be asking Melissa about why she said yes, what she expects to receive from it, what she expects to give. And so we're going to get started. Melissa, who is Melissa and what good do you bring into the world?
So, my name is Melissa Lombardo. I am trying to bring in as much good into the world that I can in the short time that I'm granted on this planet, in this universe, in this body. And I think that it has really come full circle to me of who I am. I grew up with two siblings, my parents. My mother was a great role model in just being kind and teaching us to be kind. And so there are, I think, threads throughout my life of being kind, putting yourself into the shoes of the other, walking with them from a very young age. I grew up volunteering at soup kitchens with the homeless and near homeless. I grew up taking part in other service projects. We always gave toys and we always gave mittens to different drives at school. And my mother would talk to us just about helping others. So I think as I grew into myself over the years, the best that I can bring into the world is me being the best that I can be. I went through my trauma, but coming out on the other side and having been able to heal and thrive from that, it really has helped me think about who I am and what that legacy I want to leave. So aside from that type of answer, I'm a published author. I founded my own LLC. It's Right, Heal, Thrive. And I'm also an encouraging speaker. And I do support people who also have lived experiences, who also want to live their best life, to thrive, because I think we all have that capacity. So whether I'm working with someone or I'm working with my own family and friends, just on the level of being a sister, of being a daughter, of being a godchild, of being a friend, and just taking forth that same legacy, that mission that I want to just leave the world a little bit of a better place. And so I've just been able to find my way through that and really, come into that. And I think the next steps are just so exciting.
I love that. I love that you talked about, the kindness, just being kind, learning how to be that, because there's a lot of people in the world that don't have that. They didn't get that patterning. They weren't taught that. They weren't shown how to do that. And I love that you brought that up. So let's talk a little bit about, as I always do, our mess being our message. I know that you went through a lot of trauma, and I'm going to have you talk about that. So the mess that you kind of went through, and how did that grow into actually becoming this message? Because now you're helping other people who have gone through sexual trauma. So how did you come out on the other side?
Yeah, so I think that I'll just say this: we all have something that we went through. We've all have something that we've how to look back and reflect to see, how we might be able to make this mess a message. And even if you're not at that point yet, I know now from my own experiences that it is possible to make a message out of that mess. And I love the term. It only was just about 6 months or so ago that it clicked into me that the word message has mess in it. And I said, wow, it is. You're making a message out of the mess, So it was just such a fascinating for me. I was 40 something years old when I realized that the word mess is actually a message, so it's just really cool. And I wouldn't have been able to say that 20 years ago. One of the traumas that has defined me or had defined me for so long was the trauma of sexual assault. I was a college student. I was in my 20s. I was assaulted, and I was always, very interested in learning about others, of, trying new foods and things like that. And then something after that changed me. I wasn't the same. And the trauma rooted itself in my body. And I know that now. I wouldn't have been able to say that 20 years ago. And, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to say out loud, live, let alone on a podcast, to anyone that I was assaulted. So that in and of itself has been a big change for me, to be able to get out there. And I think it also kind of goes back to that first question of the legacy of, what do I bring to the world? And I've realized that from that sexual assault and from that silence that I had, from the silence, I was able to find my voice, and I was able to, many years later, and heal from that trauma and to move forward and decide that I'm not just speaking out because of me. I'm speaking for all those who right now might not be, for all those who might not be ready to speak or can't speak, or it's not the moment yet. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay, take your time.
So, bringing that voice into the public space, because, sexual assault, sexual violence is something that is still very difficult for people to talk about. It's difficult for people to listen to. It's not something that is sweet that we talk about. It's not the, oh, what's the weather like conversation. It's not the, what are we having for dinner? It's the, oh, I was assaulted, and hey, I was assaulted, and it definitely is a conversation stopper. And it was very difficult for me to start speaking. That trauma routed itself into my being, to the depths of my being. It changed my relationships with people. It changed the way that I interacted with the world. It changed everything over those years. It changed my health. And there was so much happening that at that time I just couldn't differentiate. I did end up telling somebody, and that somebody brought me to different counselors or crisis centers until I found a good fit. And I'm really glad I did find a good fit with the crisis center. It was a YWCA, Sexual Assault Crisis Services, and they supported me on that writing journey to write about some of those things. And that was part of that healing journey. And I think I got off topic on that one, but that's this
is all sourced. It's all from our heart. So whatever needs to be said will be said.
So yes, I realized through that healing of making the mess into a message that I wasn't just healing for me. I knew that, I knew that there was a greater purpose in that. I couldn't understand over the past few years, I couldn't understand right away why am I being called to write and publish my own book about the hurt, healing, and hope I experienced of being able to thrive after sexual assault. Why was I kind of being met with more triggers? Why were they coming up? Why was I getting 16 migraines a month, which I was up until last May? All of these different things. And I kept, at those moments, those low moments of, I can't do this, I can't go forward, I can't, why me? At those low moments, somebody or something would cross my path, or I would hear or see something would happen that made me just look out into the sky and say, okay, I know, all right, I got this, keep going forward. And then as it got closer to that publishing date for that book, those I can't do this kept coming up a lot more often than just once in a while. They would come up daily. At one point, when it got really close to publishing that book, which was the culmination of turning my mess into a message, and those experiences were happening on the hour. I couldn't do this. I just didn't think I could do this until I could, because I knew every moment of the way, I knew that this was something I had to do because it was greater than me. And it wasn't until a few weeks after I published that it all started to make sense, which is later how I got to the keys. But somebody told me, Melissa, this is all for a reason. And my friend, she had said to me, actually, you're doing God's work. He's working through you, is the way that she said it. We all have different beliefs, but I'm definitely doing the work I'm supposed to be doing, and no matter how hard it was. And even now it's not easy. I might be smiling talking about it. And it's just it's been such a journey, and I think I'm always going to be on it, and it's going to change. And I can look back now, and I can say, okay, that happened to me. This is who I am now. This is the Melissa of now. I'm so much more than just that. And I think that's also what I want to transmit to people who have, or are, or they're starting that process, wherever you are in the process of any of it. We there's so much more to that. And it's almost like now, and since I found the keys to joyful living, I know how possible it is. And it's like, I want to shout it off the rooftops to everybody. I got to moderate myself. But, I don't know if that's happened to you, you get to that point where, there's so many infinite possibilities and you just want to tell everybody. I've gotten to that point, and that is the exciting part that I never thought I can have, in that. There's so much more than the mess, and I couldn't get that. I didn't get that when I was in it, because I was so in it that there's so much mess. And then it's adding those other letters, and making it a message. And it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't suddenly go from mess to message. It was that, there's something in between to make it that full word.
Yes. I love that. I'm so thankful that you have spoken up and you've unmuted your voice and you've been able to do that for others. That's a huge key. That is a huge part of why we're doing this anthology, because there are ways that we approach the world differently once we have the tools and the keys that help us unlock the doors of the opportunity, the potentiality, what we're here to do. And then it's just like Melissa, you're just driven. Wild horses can't hold you back from it, because it's time. Mm-hmm. And you've healed enough. Just like she said, it's a journey. She doesn't have a certificate up on the wall and says Melissa has completed her trauma, and her healing. So it's a continuum. It will be while we're here in this life. So I love that you were able to, find so much solace and even excitement about being able to share. So why did you decide to say yes to keys? What was it that kind of spoke to your heart? Or I'll just let you tell us. Why did you say yes to working with the Keys to Joyful Living?
Well, all right. So the answer behind the why, I think it's really important, because I said yes. Okay, the short answer would be, I said yes because I knew that I was at that point in my life. And if this book co-authorship happened even 2 months before it happened for me, I would not have been ready, and I wouldn't have felt that I was ready. And I personally believe that everything happens for a reason, and I live in this continuous movement of time, in that things take place at the moments that they're meant to take place, and that it's up to me now. I see that I can read those signs and see that these occurrences aren't just coincidental. That's how I believe. That's how I view the world. So I had this experience where, and I'll tell you all publicly, I met Marianne, and we connected through internet, and I had this possible opportunity. I was drawn to it, and I was drawn to Marianne and the work that she was doing, and some of her past projects I had known about, and I wondered if this new project, the Keys project, was something that I was ready for, if that was something I could do. And I happened to be questioning that. It all happened kind of rather quickly. I went into a podcast in a very different location than I normally record my home podcast at, an interview about my book. And it was also about the supernatural. It was also about people who have seen or have had experiences, with the other side. And I fit into that category. So I'm on this podcast, and I was sharing an experience, and I was laughing. I was joyful in this interview that I was doing it's the Kane Stevens Super Show, and I was joyful. And after I finished that interview, I went down to the kitchen and I said out loud, I am finding joy. And at that moment, I said, oh my goodness, this is the sign. I'm going to be part of Keys to Joyful Living. I don't know how, but I'm going to be part of this. And I actually was so excited about that realization that I wrote to Marianne and said, I'm going to be part of this. And I think the rest is history, because here I am. But that was the moment, actually, that I knew that I was going to somehow be part of this. And the experience so far I knew at the time, I felt this is going to be a growth experience for me. It's going to be a stretch in some ways, because these are topics that have always resonated with me. Everything about this book resonates with me. And they're things that I've always known existed. And I always read about others who have had these things happen to them, or have written about these things, or, they were trained in these different modalities. And finally, all these things growing inside me, all these building blocks just came into place and began again and opened themselves up through the Keys to Joyful Living. And I find myself on these Zoom calls with these great authors and for people that are doing things that I love, and I'm learning from them. So it's this whole book for me. Sorry if I sound excited, because I am. Everything about this is a learning experience. It's stretching me to new limits of where I'm supposed to go, because I know I'm supposed to go in this direction. And I am reading what others have written. I'm learning about others, connecting with others who completely resonate with me. That it's just fascinating. And so every step of the way is another, I guess, sign that says, yeah, you're supposed to go in this direction, because it continues to excite, it continues to motivate and open, which is that inspired action. It creates additional inspired action. And I even notice that some of the things that I might have not consciously thought about before, today, for example, I was on my way to a new opportunity, and I'm in the car, and this is directly related to Keys to Joyful Living. I got this book out of the library, and I was driving the car, and I said, I have to read that book. And then I thought, no, I want to read that book. It was an immediate change. It's a book on Gabor Mate he wrote with his son. And I just got it out of the library, and I've been thinking about it all these days. And that's part of the joy, because I have this joy that I really want to read this book, and I'm so inspired and motivated to read this book. It's not the feeling of, oh, I have to do this. Oh, and it's not that chore, because it's something I chose. And I think we choose, joy. We can have these moments where, it might be such a negative thing, and then we are able to find joy through that. And see, all these different things are coming out, I think during the process of the book. And, I just think it's just been amazing.
I appreciate
So that's the long answer of why I chose Keys. But actually, let me say something. Perhaps Keys chose me. It came into my life. So I think, it was a mutual. I think Keys presented itself to me and said, hey, what are you going to do? And,
yes.
Here it is.
Yes, absolutely. So what do you think you would like to, what do you want to give kind of in this? What do you want to experience in being part of this? You know, we're already, just to explain, our anthology is a lot different than most anthologies because a typical anthology, each author, co author, writes a chapter, and we decided to do it differently. As I've said on some of the other podcasts, we decided to do it by topic, and we broke it into 6 parts, and then there are topics under each one so that it actually is more of a reference. Yeah, of course you can read it straight through, we want you to do that, but it's always something where under all of these topics the authors are weighing in and sharing their keys, and ways they work with clients, or ways they've adjusted in their life, they've it's affected them, and how they've assimilated their transformation and created their transformation. So it's really going to be a great tool for you to flip back through when you're struggling and you need a refresher and you need to find a new tool, a new key that will unlock that door for you. So, and I love it that I'm telling the authors to write from their heart, write the way they use the keys, and it's going to be different from one author to the other. So somewhere along the line, you're going to resonate with what these authors say, and you're going to find the keys, because again, they work. They work sometimes in this situation, and the next time you circle back around and you find yourself kind of out of the joy again, a different key will work. And this is why we want to offer so many on these topics. There's so many topics. So what do you want to give? What do you want to experience? What do you want to give to others? Even within the authors in our group, because like you said, this is a learning process. We're all learning from each other. I'm reading all of what the authors are writing. Besides my introduction to every section, when they come behind me and start writing, my mind is just blown so many times because I'm learning from these coaches. So what would you like to give and receive?
I think I would like to, the 2 words that come up when you said that is continuous learning. I'd like to offer, and not just myself, but all of us, offer the opportunity of anyone to have continuous learning. I think one of the ways we grow, one of the ways that we, move through life is really affected positively by having an open mind, by being a continuous learner, by having this idea of, I want to learn more because I know I can change. I know I'm not static. I know there's so much more. So just, being able to, it's almost like giving a gift of continuous learning is through a resource like Keys to Joy. And it's the gift of joy. Nobody is going to find their way exactly like Melissa or Marianne or Elizabeth found their way. But like Marianne said, you will resonate with different people. You might resonate with Allison on one topic and Melissa on another topic, and you might resonate with both. And then you find your own way, your own key. So I think it's giving that resource to the world, and whoever picks it up and reads it, whether they read it all the way through or just flip through. And depending on the day, for me, I'll do that with books. I'll just open a book to a random page. Sometimes I'll read it through. There are books that I keep on my, in my library, and that I will refer back to years later to see what a new message I can get, because I know that life, is a process, and my healing's a process. Or, I want to feel that, renowned sense of purpose or what have you. And I think just that alone, and also knowing that it's a resource that I'll have on my shelf, even though I'm in it, it's also being able to pick that up and remind myself, okay, I want to see what would Lori say to me? What would, there's another Melissa as well. What would Melissa say? And picking up and just kind of always having that knowledge from them and being reminded, of our purpose, which is to live joy. I think that's really important, the giving, and the getting. And I think also, as authors, I know that we write for us, and then we write for other us's, out there. So it's just knowing that perhaps somebody might read one sentence I wrote, and that one sentence or one word, or they hear one thing I say on a podcast like today, if one thing resonates with them, I am doing my job of, perhaps leaving that little step of healing for someone else, for them to heal and thrive, to live just that little better life. And I think just knowing that, I might have that impact on one person because of one sentence, that motivates me to keep going and doing what I'm doing, to keep speaking out, because I don't know where I'm going to find that one person. Perhaps, I might not be able to change the world. I might be able to change, myself and live more joyfully. And then being able to, maybe someone else might not read anything I say, and they just say, "Oh yeah, I heard Melissa," and just the fact that she lives more joyfully now, I want to do that too. And maybe they'll find that book in 15 years, maybe not, maybe not, but one never knows the impact that they'll make. And the people that read this resource, the people, all of us who are writing it, which is fascinating how we're writing within each other on the chapters, which is fascinating for me. I guess I'm a book nerd, but I love that stuff. And I just like the whole journey, and for someone to be able to reflect on, even that, they might be able to go back to the book and say, wow, look at this anthology, Envision Greatness Press, and they'll find other books. So maybe it's just a gateway to something else that does also work for them. Like the book that you wrote on crystals that we were talking about before the interview started, that they're going to read something, they're going to go to your website, and that might be their key, is specifically right. Crystals. We don't know. And it's just giving them that resource. Somebody might find Elizabeth or Melissa or any of us afterwards, and say, I want to look this person up, and then gain more from just following that person. So I think there's so much potential here just, because we're putting this out into the universe. And I think it's going to affect that in such a great way.
Yes. Yes. I agree. And that's why I also told all my authors, I said, when I was preparing to offer this, and I was wanting to call authors in so that it was the right group of people, and I kept coming up with the words like-minded, but I thought, no, it's not like my mind. I don't want them to be all little Marianne robots. I want them to be like-minded, like their inner being. So that's why it's so individualized. It's so, every key is, even though it might kind of sound similar to somebody else's, they're going to perceive it differently. And it might be exactly what you need at that time. And this is what, Melissa's been talking about. You never know when you pick that book up in years to come, what you're going to get out of it, because energy knows no bounds. There's no time. There's only expansion. So energy is always expanding. So it doesn't matter how long these words have been written on the page. The energy is still there. It's still offering you the hope, the keys to joyful living. So I so appreciate you, Melissa, for joining me today. And how can folks get a hold of you?
Yep, I think a great first step would be to the website, www.melissabLombardo.com. There you will find some podcast links. You will find how to follow me on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube and Goodreads, and you'll get some information about what I do with Write, Heal, Thrive, as well as who I am as an author and a speaker. I think that would just be a great start, but definitely follow me on Facebook. I feel like I put a lot of great content. Right now I have a sunflower theme going on about, the sunflowers have been very important for me and have symbolic meaning. So I'm letting others know, what the sunflower means to me. So that would be a great start. And also I think find me in Keys to Joyful Living coming out soon, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we're looking at an October launch. So get ready for that. We're so excited about that. Do you have any other parting words of wisdom you'd like to share with us before we leave?
I would just say I think when we started, be kind. So I think I would love to, you don't know what someone else is going through, and just be kind. And my favorite statement of late has been, you are limitless. The word limitless has continued to come up into my life, and I feel like I am limitless, and I know all of you out there are limitless. So limitless is a great word.
Absolutely. I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I so appreciate you. If you need to get a hold of me, be sure and contact me through my website, envisiongreatness.com. You'll find all the press information. You'll find how to work with me. If you're just dabbing your toe in the water, you may want to join an anthology sometime. But if you want to just talk and explore publishing, I have a complimentary call that we can get on and see what you have. What book is being called through you? It may be, again, like Melissa has written her own, but she's also in this anthology. So I welcome you anytime that you want to visit and get a little bit more understanding what publishing is about, or you need a journal or workbook to up-level a program or an event that you're having. You need ghostwriting. You maybe don't feel like you're a very good writer, or you simply don't have time. There's so many ways that we can get a book into the world that will help you become a published author. And I think that's all. I sure appreciate you, Melissa, for being with me. And remember, everyone, you are joy looking for a way to express.